Order. I call the member for Gippsland.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak in support of the motion and, in doing so, seek to highlight the extremely difficult conditions facing many Australian farming families and their communities. And I deliberately refer to the farming families and their communities because when a drought hits regional Australia, it does hit us all. From those on the front line in our nation's diverse farming enterprises to the small businesses which support them and supply them, the teachers, the doctors and the health professionals who often deal with the social consequences, and the families themselves. Quite apart from these obvious economic impacts which other members have spoken about tonight, droughts are insidious as they sap at the energy and the enthusiasm of our farming families and their communities and corrode the hopes of the next generation. Deputy Speaker, this motion calls on the government to recognise the need for a long-term commitment to exceptional circumstances funding declared areas and to provide continued support to allow those areas to fully recover from the drought. And it's timely that I speak today on behalf of the people of Gippsland who have recently seen the inadequacy of the current EC system, as I've mentioned once or twice before in this House. Well, I'm pleased to report that there has been a breakthrough in Gippsland and the EC funding has been extended until next April. I stand here today to firstly apologise to the Gippsland farming families for the unnecessary and additional stress and hardship that they've been exposed to in recent weeks. I'm sorry that the system has failed them when the National Rural Advisory Council and both the state and federal ministers agreed that EC funding should be discontinued in Gippsland on September 30th of this year. It was a mistake and I'm pleased to say that it has been addressed. The original decision was made after a desktop analysis by NRAC. There was no visit to Gippsland. There was no attempt to assess the circumstances on the ground and no effort to listen to the concerns of locals. It did take considerable time and effort, and that's time away from the farming enterprise, and it placed a great deal of stress on our farming families to get NRAC to actually visit Gippsland and recognise the need for an extension to the EC funding, which has since been implemented by the Minister, and I thank him for that. Deputy Speaker, there needs to be a long-term commitment for EC declared areas to support communities like Gippsland as they recover from this drought. And perhaps just as importantly, NRAC representatives must visit or receive an on-the-ground assessment of conditions before any decision is made to remove any EC funding from a region based on lines on a map. Deputy Speaker, as we all know, when it does eventually rain, it won't be raining money, and there will be a lag time in this recovery process. I urge the federal government to keep on working in partnership with state and local government to continue to support communities throughout Australia as they emerge from the drought. There's a direct correlation between the length of years in a drought and the community's capacity to recover by itself. During a drought period, we've seen in the past where regional areas have lost skilled workers and many young people move on, literally out seeking greener pastures. I think governments must invest in the capacity of these regions to help them get back on the feet when the rains do come. I think the Victorian state government, for its past, has been dragging its heels on this issue. But thankfully today, a support package in the order of about $115 million, I understand, has been announced. It does stop short, Deputy Speaker, of the $20,000 cash grants which the Victorian state government has provided in the past, but I understand the package does include a municipal rate subsidy, which has been strongly supported by the Liberals and Nationals in Victoria. The states, I believe, must continue to do their part in addition to the federal government's EC assistance packages, because it helps to send a message to the farming families that we certainly value their contribution and they are important contributors to the future of our rural and regional communities. Money is going to be needed for the basic survival, let alone for on-farm works such as fencing and the maintenance work, along with productivity related to things like improving pastures. All of these things, Deputy Speaker, fall behind when the conditions are tough and the money is tight. Our challenge, I believe, with EC funding is to support these farming families, to get them over the hump, knowing full well that they will prosper again on the other side when the rains come. This is not a welfare or a charity. This is an investment in the future of our nation's productive farming enterprises. And on that point, I strongly urge our farming families in EC-affected areas to seek information on whether they are entitled to any assistance. Don't do the self-assessment. Don't take the view that this is some form of welfare if you access the income support or the interest rate subsidies which are available through exceptional circumstances funding. I'm concerned that after meeting with several groups of farmers in my electorate, I fear that many of them are too proud to put their hands up and ask for assistance which is available to them. It disappoints me, Deputy Speaker, that the state and federal governments on both sides of politics in the past have spent a small fortune on advertising propaganda but have failed to inform enough of our farming families about the benefits which they may be able to access. Deputy Speaker, in closing, I commend the member for Riverina for moving this motion and urge all members to recognise the seriousness of the drought
Order. The
situation
member for
across rural
Gippsland's time
Australia.
has expired.